Unseen and unheard. Yes, there's a lot of us walking around saying we're unseen and unheard. But how about the widows? You ever go to church and they have single ministries, they have marriage ministries, but it seems like they forget about the widows. So today we're going to talk about the widows because I know that's a hard thing. You become a widow, and hey, I'm a widow and I'm single. So we have two young ladies who have experienced being widows before, my sweetie boo and my sweet cousin. We're going to talk about this today. Grab one of your friends, let them know because this is important, right?
It is.
So let's just get right into it.
All right. Today we're going to talk about how to get through it. Being a widow is one of those trying times in life that at times you may feel like, what am I going to do? And
Yes.
so we're going to cover some things like what your first reaction may be when you experience this loss, and things about planning the funeral, how it changes the family dynamics,
Hmm.
even when you're at a time that you're starting to venture into new relationships.
Yes.
And then eventually life goes on. Today, we want to talk about some things to help you be prepared for it. And today, our guest is my cousin Pam, who unfortunately has been widowed twice. And there are some things that she and I both are going to share with you today. One of the first things that I wanted to talk about when I was widowed some 28 years ago was the thing of feeling overwhelmed. When my late husband passed away, I remember feeling just having all of these emotions all over the place.
Yes.
How I was worried, I was grieving, I was angry, I was confused. But Pam, how did you feel when you first experienced the death of your husband?
When my husband first passed, it was very unexpected. It was one day, one morning he's there, and the next evening he's not. So I was in disbelief. I felt like I was in a dream. I was confused. I kept asking God why this happened to me. I was just not, my whole being was just off because I couldn't believe what had happened in my life.
It's so unbelievable how a person can be here one day and gone the next,
Right.
never to see him again. And it's different when it's a sudden death versus one that's long term when you're
Yeah,
expecting.
but y'all
Correct.
could never be
Correct.
prepared
You
for
can
it.
you
Right.
can
Never be
never be
prepared for it.
prepared
Yeah.
for.
So, what are some of the lessons that you learned?
One of the lessons that I did learn is that regardless to how you are living, you need to be prepared for death because it's very important. I learned that during that time that you are not in your right state of mind. And so therefore planning ahead of time helps you get through the ordeal that you're going through. I was blessed in my first husband's passing to have a wonderful church family that helped guide me through a lot. I had my nephew who was a minister. He took the lead and helped me do all the arrangements. I had girlfriends who helped with obituaries. I think it's important also to have a support group in your life for various things that will happen.
I know for me, at 40 years old, you're not expecting to have to bury your spouse. The one thing that I had done was gotten life
Yeah.
insurance, and that helped me not worry about that particular financial part because planning a funeral, I had no clue. But I had a pastor who and wife who went with me to prepare and make plans. And they really took care of me during that whole process. And this is
Right.
one of those times where it's really so important to have a support group, whether it be family, friends, or
Yes.
that's the importance of having church family because even after you go through all of that planning and that sort of thing, to have someone support you when you're going through grief and
That's
loneliness and
correct.
those sorts of things
Yes.
is helpful also. At 40 years old, one of the first things when your spouse passes and you're at a hospital or somewhere, it's the first question being asked is, where do we send the
That's
body?
right.
And you're not prepared for that. So you don't have a clue. So I had to call and ask
That's
somebody.
correct.
you know.
That's
And
correct.
they have those resources. We
Now
try to
they
provide,
do.
and I think every church should provide the resources for
Right.
them to go to, like
Right.
a pre-needs list in case you die. We have a
Yes.
file on our computer in case we pass away that has everything listed out. You should have a checklist. I know a lot of people don't want to talk about it.
'Cause it's
That
something
But
that's
if you, yeah,
inevitable.
yes, inevitable.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
if
and
you love the
that's
person,
correct.
you really want to make sure
Yeah.
that they are secure when you leave.
And the thing that we want to pass on today too is the importance of being prepared.
Pre-planning.
As a married couple, this is something you have to talk about. Either you need to have insurance, because I'm telling you, the average funeral today is usually 10,000, and you
Yes.
don't need to be pouring more money into that when you're at an emotional state. So at least have life insurance, or a lot of the funeral homes have pre-needs where you can go and you can pay on that over time.
Correct. Yes.
And that takes all the guesswork out of your family having to do all of that while you're in a grieving state.
Yes, I found that it's important as well. I've gone through it twice, and I really have learned that it's not a problem to do your obituary while you
Right.
live, because there's a lot of things that sometimes you don't remember or you need to try to investigate to check out. And if you want your obituary done correctly, write it ahead of time. At least all the things about your families and who your parents were and what school you went to and just different highlights of your
Yeah.
life. It really helps when someone is going to do your obituary to write down what you want. And that means a whole lot, and it helps a whole lot because number one, those that are here understand they did everything that you wanted them to do. There's no second guess. Maybe they didn't want me to do this or that. And I think that pre-needs and even writing your obituary out was very
Important, because I've even gone so far as to think about that. And now that you say that,
correct.
even to go ahead and start planning a program out, to all they have
That's
to
what I
do
mean. Yeah.
is go and get that, and they can add whatever
They can
picture.
add
Because
the things,
sometimes you don't
yes.
even know about all the background.
That's correct.
A lot of people grieve, and we
Yes.
all grieve in different ways. So I'd like to know some of the things y'all did to help you during that time of grieving. And maybe you can also talk about, I know people come to you and they may say things that they think are helpful, but they're really not helpful. So how did y'all do with the grieving? Did you go to a psychologist? Did you go to family? What are some of the things and tools that y'all used?
Here is what a lot of people, here's what happened with me. A lot of people avoided me
Yes.
because they didn't know what to say. And in fact, at work, one lady said, I wanted to come talk to you just to give you my condolences, but I didn't know what to say. And I said, that's okay, because I'm going through it and I don't know what to say either, but thank you just for coming over and wishing me well. I appreciate that. That was something that people did all the time, or they would tell you things like, it's just like getting divorced.
No.
No, it is
No,
not.
it's not. That's
You
not what
know,
it is.
and I remember getting into it with a coworker about that. But no, it's not like divorce, because a divorce, you choose to be away from that person, and death is altogether
Death is
different.
altogether
So,
Final. Yeah,
different.
death
It
is
is so
final.
so
final.
please
Thank
don't
you.
say that to
Yeah.
somebody.
It's like the grief part is hard because it's like you wake up in the morning and your loved one who was always laying by your side is not there. You have your coffee in the morning. And I shall never forget that the morning after it happened, I went and I made coffee. 2 cups, as I always did. I was on my way up the stairs to take him his coffee. This is what we would always do. And my son said, Mama, what are you doing? And I looked at you go through your breakdowns. But grieving everyone is so different. It looks like in my first husband's death, everything I saw reminded me of him. And I know a lot of times people don't know what to do for you when you're feeling that way. And my advice is just be there. There's sometimes no words you can say. Just be there for me during that time. Sometime I wanted to talk, sometime I just couldn't talk.
Yeah.
So grieving, everyone goes through their grief in a different way
Yeah.
when this happens. Taking care of any business that you have to do at that time is fine, but give yourself grace, a year or two, to really make sure that everything you're doing is coming from not necessarily your head, but your heart, and you're doing things the right way. I think that's very important because I know for me, it took me a while. I would do things that I shouldn't have done. Had I had more time, I would not have done.
Right.
So always remember, just try to give yourself grace and give yourself time so that you can learn how to deal with life without your love.
Did any of y'all seek any other resources like widow groups? I
Counseling.
know they have in
Yeah.
church, or go
Yeah.
to counseling or anything. Or if you didn't, with knowing what you've been through now, you should recommend it to people.
Absolutely.
I would. It took me a while to get there, and what caused me to get there is that I think I cried every night for a whole month until I was physically worn out because people had told me, just be strong. So I wouldn't let myself cry. And it got to the point where at night, that's all I did.
You were alone and
I
by
was-
yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And just exhausted. And I realized, okay, I need to go talk to somebody. And I known that, I think I would have gone to counseling earlier than when I did instead of waiting until I got to a breaking point.
Correct.
But it's good to let the tears come. It's however you grieve, that's your grief. You don't need to feel guilty about it. You don't need to feel ashamed. Whatever it takes for you to get through. It even got to the point I had to put scripture up to just keep my mind
And
focused.
Pam, how did you
Yeah,
get that?
the same exact way I did. I had to naturally lean on the Lord for sure. I really had to stay in prayer. I had to stay in fasting. I definitely clung to the church for everything. And that is one thing that I thought about the church. There's really not many groups for widows or someone who is grieving to go to at that time. And I don't know about you, but at that time, going to a counselor or someone to talk to, you were hesitant to do it. But now I find that was the best thing that I could have done
Yeah.
because I was guided into learning how to deal with grief and what I could do to make myself feel better. Someone I could talk to that knew nothing about me, knew nothing about the marriage I had, but that I could just talk to and cry to and try to understand that it was okay what I was going through. But I think it would be dynamic for us to have groups in church for grief because there's a lot of widows and widowers in church who go through the same thing. It's not just the women, it's also some of our men who are widowers and they don't know how to navigate through
Right.
some of the grief that you go through.
The other thing, too, you have to be careful of people swarming on you from the opposite sex, vying
very
for
true.
your
Yes.
attention when you
Yes.
are going through the grief stage. You can make a lot of mistakes there. Comfort for mistake, comfort
Yeah.
for love, and
That's right.
and before you know it, you confuse. So you have to be careful about that. And I'm thankful that my pastors watched over me
Over
during
you.
who did not have that kind of covering when they were widowed.
And
That's
talking
correct.
about that, for you, Pam and Lana, may have been different. The family dynamics.
Yes.
The family dynamics when all of a sudden you have a brother-in-law, sister-in-law, and have a whole number family. And I know I want to talk about that. How did that affect you, or what happened during that time? Because I know with some people, once they become a widow, it's like their in-laws are no longer in the picture.
Oh no, my in-laws were absolutely wonderful. Actually, my in-laws were my pastor. That was my first husband. That Pat was his brother, Bishop George Anderson, and his wife was Lady Gail Anderson. They were right there by me with everything I did, and their children are still my nieces and nephew, and they're right there by me. That is one thing that has always been a blessing to me. And even in my second husband, who had dementia, so that was a long journey for caring for him, but his family is still right there. They're still my family. So in that aspect, I have been so blessed. Those are my family. No, I have been blessed. They have been by my side. They have helped me. I know we're in here talking, but Lana and Fran, they have been my covering while I've been here. And it's just be a blessing that you know that you can call on somebody that is there, that is true, that is helping you from the heart. And you feel so much comfort when you're going through this type of thing because you know they're there.
Yeah. And I had a different experience. My late husband and I, we had his children. We didn't have legal custody of them, but they were with us and we
Yes.
were raising them. So immediately upon their dad's death, my stepchildren went back to live with their mom. I really lost touch with my in-laws. So it's like I had a very big loss. You know, my
Yes, you
family
did.
went from 5 or 6 of us down to 2 of us. It was just my daughter and I. My son was away in college. And so it was a real stressful time to have to
Right.
tell the kids what happened with their dad
Yeah.
and then to have to call their mom. That wasn't a good situation. It just made it that much more stressful.
Yes.
And the whole process was very hard
Yeah,
and
and
very
that's like
Well,
difficult.
now,
a second loss
that's
for
it.
Yeah,
you
it-
with the children that you're raising,
Yeah.
Right.
things
True.
that you need to
And
talk
yes.
about with
Yeah.
a blended
And
family
yeah.
Yeah.
and getting things in
That's correct.
place.
Yeah,
The
it
thing-
can make you make rash decisions,
Yes,
which
absolutely.
happen with me.
That's another thing I wanted to say. When you come from blended families, make sure that you know what each person wants to do if anything happens. Now that was bonus children from my first marriage. It was awful. They did me wrong thing they could, thought that they should get everything that was left. They never considered sitting down talking to me. They wanted to get an attorney to sue me. Went through all that. And that hurt me worse than anything because we had raised all the children together. We loved them all together. We gave them everything all together. And so that was also a very hurtful thing, the way my bonus children handled me during that time. So
And
that's
that's-
very important as
Yes,
well.
and that's where I learned a lot as a man from Lana, speaking to her when she told me the importance of having insurance and according to purposing our money, telling our kids because we have a blended family.
That's
hey,
right.
this is what's going to happen
Right.
when I pass away, or Lana passes away, and any deviation from this, you get nothing.
That's
These
right.
are my wishes, my hard on one. This is what we built up,
Yeah.
and this is what we decided. And it was because of the knowledge that Lana had given me. Hey, that's in
difficult.
probate court and all that. Your money is tied
That's
up, and you
right.
went from 2 incomes to 1 income. You can't even touch the money that you saved
That's
up.
correct. That
All of that happens. It's very legalistic. I ended up not being able to settle the estate for 4 years because my bonus daughter was underage, and I had to wait until he was at
Yes.
least 18 before I could consolidate,
yes.
which put my life
On
on
hold. That's what happens.
And I had legal fees I was trying to pay. I went
Attorney
from
fees.
2
Yes.
incomes to one, and so I was constantly trying to figure out financially how I was going to survive. But with God's help, He walked me through the process. And I'm just here to say to anyone right now who is going through a difficulty like that, if you put your trust in God and surround yourself with good people, God will bring you through
And
that
He
journey.
will. Absolutely.
I owed tremendous debt, and I wouldn't even allow myself to even talk to anybody until I had gotten rid of some of that debt. I didn't want to bring that to a relationship.
Correct.
It's a lot, and that kind of segues us into
How we depend on God.
Yes.
We depend on God when we do God's word. When we do God's word as being prepared. Like the and in the Bible, God wants us all to be prepared.
yes.
And I think that as people sometimes when they hear us say, oh, just depend on God. We depend on God because we've been obedient to God. We've been obedient in doing His word, saving, purposing our money, doing what God has called us to do. So when you hear us say, oh, just depend on God, it's
That's
because
what it
we've been
is.
doing what God called us to do, which is be prepared.
Be
Yes.
prepared. And the other thing is to share the hard lessons that
Amen.
you've
Yes,
learned,
yes.
because
This
a
is
lot of
right.
times we go through things or we know things and we don't share it with one another for whatever reason, when we could help someone else avoid the hardships
Not going through
that
what you
we
had to
have
go
been
through. That's
through.
so true.
And now that you know better, do better, share the information on top of doing what God has called us to do.
Correct.
You
That's
know,
right. That's
and
right.
so in the new relationship that God blessed me with and finding my sweet,
That's my way.
That's right.
We can
Well,
go on to the next phase.
Okay.
We can go on to the next phase, and some people may not have this phase, but if you have this phase, if you're blessed that you want to enter another relationship, oh, how did you maneuver that? How difficult is that? And because I know you must have felt some kind of guilt because you're moving on from someone that you love. You got your family looking at, talking about what are you doing. Some of them like, just be good by yourself. The Lord got you. That's not for everybody.
It's
Yeah.
not.
So how did y'all maneuver that? How did you know, hey, maybe I can start dating again and get that stigma off of maybe what your family may be thinking?
I think mine was moving on because I moved on pretty quickly, like 6 months. But I did because I think I moved on so quickly because I was craving that love again. I was craving having someone in my life that loved me. I was craving having a mate. And I moved on. I left California and moved to Oklahoma, and I remarried. And it was a totally different marriage. It was a totally different marriage. It was a marriage of love, of course it was. But what you do sometime is you think about what your marriage was in the beginning, and you, depending on what type of marriage you had, I have to say that because sometimes you've left a marriage or someone's passed and you thinking, let me go on now, I won't get into that again. But you do, you go on and you find someone and your marriage goes on. But with my second marriage, it was a marriage where there was a lot of trauma. It was trauma in the person that I married. And so it was really hard sometimes for me to deal with that. And then I realized the trauma because there was a sickness going on. Then I found myself being a caretaker more so than being married. That was very hard because, again, I had not given myself sufficient time to heal. So I went into a marriage with trauma myself, not having gotten over where I came from and all the things I had lost with all the trauma I had. And so I brought that into my marriage. And that's not good. At first, I would hide that. I wouldn't tell that to anyone because I thought you should be ashamed of yourself. But I've realized being honest with people and saying how you feel helps someone not go through what I went through when I did remarry. That's what I went through. My husband was a wonderful man. He really was. But he had some problems. The dementia and Alzheimer's that he had caused me to be more of a caretaker in that marriage. And it was very hard up until the very end. Now, the only thing about that is that I had planned very well because I knew that he would pass away. We had been told, and hospice was in and all that. So I did plan very well. So it wasn't, we had written everything down, so it wasn't as traumatic, let me say, as when my first husband passed so unexpectedly. And this is my own reason. Well, I tell people I don't care how much you think you're in love a second time. If it is, hold off and just pace yourself. Get your own trauma out of the way, your own debt, as Miss LANA said, your own debt out of the way. Get all those things out of the way before you jump back into a marriage after you have become a widow or a widower. I think that's very important.
Thank you for being so transparent.
Yes.
And what you say
Yes.
is applicable to anybody and
Correct.
everybody.
It is.
Breaking up with someone, most psychologists will tell you, if you break up with someone, give yourself at least a year
That's right. A minimum of a year.
to deal with what you just went through. And
Seek
so
your
we really
counseling
appreciate your
and people to
transparency.
talk to, your minister, your church. Yes, I definitely believe in that. It's very important.
for me, I remember feeling guilty at first. I continued wearing my wedding ring for a while, and one of my coworkers said, "How will anybody know that you're not married anymore?" I was like, what do you mean? You're still wearing your ring. And I said, I hadn't thought about that.
It become a part of you, the ring.
And so it
Yeah.
took me a while to take the ring off. I did eventually date, but I wasn't used to dating and the expectations that people had. I finally got to the point where I said, Lord, I'm just going to focus on something else right now because I can't do this because I felt guilty. And if you want me to have somebody, they're going to have to find me. And it was when my husband sent me an email. So I was on a site that I answered his email, and
Here comes Sweetie Boo.
here's my honey wunny.
That's a blessing. That's a blessing.
Yeah,
Yes,
and,
it is.
and so he's allowed me to share things with him that have caused us to put things in place for one another so that we don't have to go through any of those things.
I want to thank y'all for your transparency. I know that's a hard conversation, but hopefully it'll change someone's life.
I hope so.
Because you can see their stories are different, but the trauma is there. The trauma is there, that it's all right to be depressed. It's all
Correct.
right. You're not different because you feel guilty, mad, sad, or whatever it is. That's part of the process. But you can see from both of these women of God, part of the process. That means process. That means you go through. It's when you stay in that quagmire that you can get lost. So we hope today that speaking to the widows, we see you. And I'm going to let them give the last words as we close out.
I just want to say to those who are going through widowhood today, your life is not over.
Correct.
And wherever you are now, it's a new beginning for you, whether you choose to remain single or to move on with life. It's okay. And I just want to say, you are not alone. You are not the only one going through this. A lot of times the enemy will have you thinking that you're the only one and nobody else is going through all this, but you are not alone. And I want you to know that.
And I want to say it's a time for you to rediscover yourself. And I think that's very important. You can sit down and rediscover some of the things that you have not been able to do. Go out and meet new friends. Go to dinner with spare of the moment friends or find someone to hang out with. Your life is still just beginning. It's just a new way that it's going to begin. But just enjoy your life. As a widow, that's what I'm trying to do. Just enjoy living again. But this time I'm just by myself. But I'm not alone.
Amen. We thank you. We hope this was a blessing to someone.